Hello everyone, welcome to the Daily Current Affairs Analysis brought to you by Shankar IAS Academy, 7th March 2026. Before getting into the discussion, please make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you haven't, please do subscribe and also hit the bell icon to receive on-time updates from the Academy. Before moving to the topics for today's discussion, we have an important announcement. It is regarding the pre-storming UPSC Prelims Test Series. The batch 6 will be starting on 10th March 2026. And like we mentioned, this batch is very special because it is designed for veteran aspirants as well as for the working professionals. The batch is available online as well as offline. Link for the registration is in the website. Do register and crack the prelims this year. And coming to the topics for today's discussion, the first topic is India-Canada uranium deal. So recently, Indian government signed an agreement with Cameco, one of the top 3 uranium producing corporations in the world. And according to this deal, this company will provide 10 tons of uranium to India from 2027 to 35. And the next article is about the Raisina Dialogue 2026. So recently the Prime Minister attended this dialogue. So we'll be discussing the basic facts about this conference. And the next article is the mains article. It is talking about the metabolic disease burden in India. So we'll be discussing what is metabolic disease, and we will be discussing some of the associated concepts, and then we will be seeing what are the major reasons for this metabolic disease and what can be done. And another topic is also a mains topic. It is talking about how the women's rights and life is affected due to the conflict and the ongoing war. So we'll be discussing how the women are disproportionately affected because of the war, and at the same time we'll be discussing what are the international frameworks we have to protect the rights of women in the conflict area. And finally, we'll be discussing the prelims focus for the day. So if all set, let's begin the discussion with the first article. So coming to the first article, India-Canada uranium deal and India's nuclear program. The article is taken from The Hindu. So recently, the government of India signed an agreement with the Cameco Corporation of Canada, one of the global top 3 producers of uranium. And according to this agreement, the Canadian company, that is Cameco Corporation, will supply 10,000 tons of uranium to India from 2027 to 35. So we know that nuclear energy, it's an energy that we obtain through fission or fusion of atoms. And this energy is very important for clean power production as well as for the sustainable development. And also this will ensure long-term fuel security. This agreement will ensure long-term fuel security for India, as well as this will expand the civilian nuclear energy capacity of India. So not this, it is a civilian nuclear agreement. That means the uranium that we procured from Canada under this agreement can be used only for civilian purpose, not for defense or weapons. We will discuss what is the reason in the upcoming slide. So talking about India's uranium resource or uranium reserve, so we can see that India has a reserve of nearly 4.2 to 4.3 lakh tons of uranium ore. But the problem is quality, and that is why we signed this agreement with the Canada. If you extract 100 kg of for uranium, then out of this 100 kg of material, we can the concentration of the uranium ore will be just 0.02% to 0.45%. That means remaining 99% will be rock and other material. And that is why if you take the Canadian uranium ore, it is 10 to 100 times richer in terms of quality than the Indian uranium ore. So India has reserve, but the problem is quality. And talking about the major uranium mining areas in India, Jadaguda in the state of Jharkhand, Turamit in the state of Jharkhand, as well as the Tumalapal in the state of Andhra Pradesh. So these are the major uranium mining areas in the nation of India. And talking about India's uranium import, so 75% of nuclear, civilian nuclear requirement of India is met through importing the uranium. So that is around 3 by 4 of India's civilian nuclear uranium requirement is met through importing the uranium from other countries. And the major suppliers are Canada, Kazakhstan, Russia, and the Uzbekistan. And now India is building a strategic uranium reserve with a capacity of supplying fuel for at least 5 years. But it will take some time. And like I mentioned before, the uranium that we procure under this agreement cannot be used for weapons or defense. The reason is India-Canada Civil Nuclear Cooperation Agreement, which was signed between these two countries in 2010. So there is a major provision in this agreement, that is the fissionable material account. So according to this fissionable material account, India has to submit the account or the details regarding how much uranium they imported, how much uranium they utilized, how much uranium we have currently stored, and also what are the reactors that we use for the production of the energy, how much energy we produced using the uranium. So all these details has to be submitted before the Canada according to the India-Canada Civil Nuclear Agreement. And this provision is also being criticized for being too open, because we are giving details about our nuclear reactors, we are giving details about our uranium reserve. So people are telling that it may affect the strategic autonomy of India. But we can see that this provision also brings a stability to India in engaging the uranium in engaging the commercial trade of uranium with other countries. For example, the uranium, thorium, plutonium, these materials are very critical. As at the same time, the movement of these materials in the world is strictly monitored and regulated, because this has high potential for being used in weapons. And we can see that India can easily sign an agreement with another country without much complication. That is because of this provision. Because we can see that currently we easily signed agreement with Canada. No other countries opposed it, or no other countries raised any concerns about this. That is because of this provision only. There are criticism that it is affecting the strategic autonomy, but at the same time, this provision is helping India to engage in with another country for uranium procurement. Even the nuclear supplying groups also allows India to engage with the other countries, even though India is not a signatory to the non-proliferation treaty. And talking about India's nuclear energy status. So currently there are 24 operational reactors in India with a capacity of 9 gigawatt. And the major reactor that we are using in India is the pressurized heavy water reactor with a capacity of 700 megawatt unit. And the nuclear energy contributes to 3% of India's electricity generation. And now India is moving with a target of achieving 100 gigawatt of nuclear power capacity by 2047. That is by the Vikasit Bharat. And talking about India's three-stage nuclear program. So the three-stage nuclear program was proposed by the father of Indian atomic science, Dr. Homi J. Bhabha. So we can see that this three-stage nuclear program ultimately aims for the utilization of thorium for more nuclear energy. So this will happen. This program will develop in 3 different stages. In the first stage, we will be using the pressurized heavy water reactors for the generation of power, and we will be using the natural thorium, that is thorium 235, for the production of the energy. And through this, we will be producing plutonium as well as electricity. And next, we will move to the second stage. Here, we will be using the fast breeder reactor. So currently, a prototype is being developed in Kalpakkam in India. So here in this stage, we will be using the mixture of uranium as well as plutonium, and we will produce more plutonium and uranium. And next we will move to the third stage. So here we will be using advanced heavy water reactor, and here the fuel will be thorium and plutonium, and we will be producing uranium. So ultimately the purpose is utilization of the reserve of thorium reserve of India for the production of nuclear energy. And India holds nearly 20 to 25% of the thorium reserve in the world. So we know that the monazite sand in the state of Kerala as well as in the other coastal regions of India is rich in thorium. And coming to the prelims practice question, the question is, consider the following statements regarding India's nuclear energy program. Statement 1, India's three-stage nuclear program aims to ultimately utilize thorium as a primary fuel. Statement 2, fast breeder reactors produce more fissile material than they consume. Statement 3, imported uranium can be directly used in India's nuclear weapon. So we can see that the imported uranium cannot be used for nuclear weapon. It can be used only for civilian purpose. It is regulated by international treaties, including the India-Canada Civil Nuclear Agreement, which was signed in 2010. So if we can eliminate the statement 3, then we can eliminate option B, option 1, option D. So the correct answer will be option C. Yes, with this we will move to the next article. So coming to the next article, Prime Minister attends Raisina Dialogue 2026. The article is taken from The Hind. So recently, we can see that the Raisina Dialogue was organized in the national capital, and our Indian Prime Minister attended the meeting. So what is Raisina Dialogue? It is India's premier conference on geopolitics and geoeconomics, and who are the organizers? Observer Research Foundation and the Ministry of External Affairs from the Government of India. and the venue is New Delhi, and we can see that the Raisina Dialogue started in the year 2016, and the place, the location of this meeting is the Raisina Hill, the exact location of the Indian government. So that is a place where the Central Secretariat as well as the Rashtrapati Bhavan is located. And who are the participants? Head of states or the governments, ministers, diplomats, strategic experts, scholars, and the academicians. And this year, our Prime Minister attended the meeting, and the Finland President Alexander Stubb also delivered key speech in the meeting. And talking about the objectives and themes, so the platform, it is for it is a key conference on geopolitics and geoeconomics, like we mentioned before. And the major themes discussed in the Raisina Dialogue are geopolitical and security issues, and the stability and the rule of the Indo-Pacific region, geoeconomic governance, technology governance, particularly development of artificial intelligence, cyber security, and machine learning, climate change and energy transition, multilateralism, and the global institutions. So these are the major themes of discussion in the Raisina Dialogue. And the significance, so it is considered as Asia's leading geopolitical conference, as well as it will enhance India's diplomatic engagement and strategic leadership, particularly in the Indo-Pacific region. And other important global strategic dialogues. So you have to understand, you have to note these strategic dialogues, because these are the areas where we can expect questions in the prelims. So we have the Shangri-La Dialogue, which was organized in the nation Singapore, and the major focus of this conference is Asia Pacific defense and security. And the next dialogue is the Munich Security Conference. So Munich is located in Germany, so the organizer is Germany, and the focus was on global security and strategic affairs. And the next is Doha Forum in Qatar. So the focus was diplomacy, global governance, and other development. Bawa Forum, Forum for Asia, organized by China. And the major theme of this conference was economic cooperation in the Asian continent. And St. Petersburg International Economic Forum, organizer is the Russia. And the theme was global economic cooperation. And World Economic Forum, that is located in Davos in Switzerland. So the major theme was global economy and governance. And coming to the prelims practice question, the question is: consider the following statements regarding Raisina Dialogue. Statement 1: it is organized jointly by the Ministry of External Affairs and Observer Research Foundation. Statement 2: it is primarily a military defense summit organized by NATO. And statement 3: it is held annually in the New Delhi. So from the three statements, we can easily connect to the first statement and the third statement, while second statement makes no logic. So the correct answer will be option B, 1 and 3 only. Yes, with this we will move to the next article. So coming to the next article, India, China top Asia Pacific region with the highest metabolic diseases burden. The article is taken from The Hindu. So recently a study was published based on the global burden of diseases studied 1990-2023, and this study found that India and China has the highest prevalence of metabolic disorders or diseases in the Asia Pacific region. So what is mean by metabolic diseases? So these are the disorders that affect the person's metabolism, that is the person's body's efficiency to absorb, utilize, and store energy. And this is the rise in the metabolic diseases in the recent time is associated with the increasing level of urbanization, sedentary lifestyle, as well as change in the dietary pattern. And some of the examples of the metabolic diseases are type 2 diabetes, high systolic blood pressure, high body mass index, high level of cholesterol, and also metabolic dysfunction associated steatotic liver disease, shortly known as fatty liver. So these are some of the examples of the metabolic disorders. And talking about India's metabolic disease burden. So before understanding this data, we have to understand about a concept called disability associated life years. So this is a measure used by health agencies, including the WHO, to understand how much years a person lost in his life due to premature death and also due to disability. So imagine that a person got diagnosed with some condition at the age of 10. At the age of 10, he got diagnosed with some condition like some metabolic disease, and he lived for another 20 years with this disability or with this disorder. and after 20 years this person died. That means at the age of 30 or before 35 this person died. If he was healthy, he would have lived at least up to 60 years or 75 years. But because of this disorder, which was diagnosed at the age of 10, he lived with the disorder for 20 years, and after 20 years he died. That means at the age of 30 he died. So therefore he lost nearly 30 years of his life, not 30 years, nearly 20 years of disability. That includes nearly 50 years of his life because of the premature death and disability. That is this concept, and it is a measure used by health agencies, including the World Health Organization, to understand about the disease burden. And talking about the type 2 burden, type 2 diabetes burden in India. So India lost nearly 21 million days in the India has 21 million disability adjusted life years, and nearly 5.8 lakhs death, and high systolic blood pressure caused the disability adjusted lifestyle around 3.8 crore, and death around 15.7 lakh. And other risk factors causes, for example, this high BMI increases at the rate of 2.7 to 2.9 percentage annually, and the cholesterol level in the population is increasing, and also there is an increasing rate of fatty liver diseases in the recent times in the people, even in the young people. And in the if you take the data, we can see that this disability adjusted life years, in the recent time in 2023, overcoming China, India became the first nation with the highest rate of disability adjusted life years. And the driving factors of the metabolic diseases in India. So we already mentioned some of them. Structural factors are rapid urbanization, which leads to sedentary lifestyle and overuse of motor vehicles. That means the people are not even walking. And also we can see that the rising urbanization will lead to loss of open places, including playgrounds. So the people will not be able to walk, or they will not get any space for physical activity. So this will ultimately disrupt their metabolism in the body. And also workplace inactivity. That means we know that office work, so there the physical activity is very limited. And changes in the dietary factors is another major reason. That is rising consumption of ultra processed food in the urban area, food with high sugar content and salt content and trans fat. Trans fat will lead to rising cholesterol level, and ultimately it will lead to cardiovascular problem. The salt intake will lead to sodium level, high sodium level, which causes blood pressure and eventually heart problem. High blood sugar, that will lead to a lot of issues. And socio-economic changes is another major reason. That is changing food environment. So if you take the present day trend, we can see that the organic food are much more costlier than the ultra processed food. And the marketing of unhealthy food. So because of this marketing, children, especially kids, are eating this ultra processed food, and eventually getting this metabolic diseases at the very young age. And reduced physical activity among the youth. And epidemiological transition. So we can see that currently India is moving from communicable disease burden to non-communicable disease burden. So nearly this non-communicable disease accounts for nearly 66% of death in India, according to the estimation from the WHO. And metabolic diseases will increase other complications, like I mentioned, cardiovascular problem, kidney failure, and also stroke. And what will be the economic impact? So this will be the great. So the health system needs to be reformed frequently. We need more people, we need more investment, we need more research. So this will increase the burden on the health system. At the same time, it will also have economic side. It will lead to increase in the poverty because of the out of pocket expenditure. It will lead to reduced workforce productivity in the economy, because if a person, for example, a young person at his early 20s or late 20s get diagnosed with any condition, his productivity will be less. He has to spend more time in the hospital and hospital associated activities. And greater insurance and public health cost, the next economic impact. And a demographic risk. So the rising early onset diabetes among the Indian youth people, like I mentioned, if the diabetes happens, every day won't be same. Every day the person won't be energetic and active. One day he will be good, another day he won't be feeling healthy. So such issues are there. And we can see that in some researchers are even terming India's diabetes capital of the world. And policy response and prevention strategies. So what can be done? First is regulating the diet. So suggested interventions like the front of package nutrition labeling. So recently the Supreme Court directed the Food Safety and Standard Authority of India for this, to consider the front of package labeling, and the regulation of the ultra processed food, and the reduction in the reducing the intake of salt, sugar, and trans fat. And we can see that the best example is the Fasai's Eat Right movement, which is focusing on promotion of the healthy food habit. And the next initiative is making changes in the urban design, which supports the physical activity. So that includes restoration of open places, restoration of ground, playgrounds, and providing cycling infrastructure, school and workplace fitness programs. And it will, it aligns with the WHO's Healthy Cities initiative. And the third initiative is early screening and primary health care. So we have large scale screening of people with obesity, diabetes, and hypertension and fatty liver. So this is done. So even in school level itself, we have taken a lot of initiatives for recording the BMI, as well as blood pressure screening and all. And such initiatives are going on under the National Program for the Prevention and Control of Cancer, Diabetes, and Cardiovascular Diseases and Stroke. And coming to the way forward, what we can suggest: integrated public health strategies. That means focusing on preventive healthcare, at the same time reforming the food system, redesigning the urban infrastructure, strengthening the primary healthcare in all level, and digital monitoring and screening of children and adult population to prevent the early onset of the diseases. And our long-term goal should be shifting from curative health system to preventive health system. So we know that this metabolic diseases, especially this diabetes, hypertension, cannot be cured, but they can be managed and they can be prevented. So our long-term goal to deal with this metabolic disease should be a change in the approach from curative health system to preventive health system. And this the policy alignment. So it supports the objective of Ayushman Bharat. It supports the objective of the national non-communicable disease control strategy, and also it supports the sustainable development goal number 3.4, which focuses on reduction of the premature mortality from non-communicable diseases. So these are the policy response and initiatives that we can take to deal with the metabolic disease. And coming to the main practice question, the question is: metabolic diseases are emerging as a major public health challenge in India due to rapid socio-economic and lifestyle transitions. Examine the factors responsible for the rising burden of metabolic diseases in India and suggest policy measures to address this problem. So we already discussed what are the factors responsible for the rising burden of metabolic diseases. Structural changes, for example, rapid urbanization, changing dietary pattern, and the lifestyle changes. So these are the major factors behind the increasing level of non-communicable diseases. And suggest the policy measures. What are the policies we discussed while discussing the policy response? So using these hints, try to answer the question and post it in the comment section. So it's a 15 marks question and you have to write around 250 words. So write the answer, post it in the comment section. We will review and we will reply for your answer. Now it's time to move to the next article. So coming to the next article, protecting women's rights amid conflict and instability. The article is taken from the Hindu. So we know that on this March 8th, the world will be observing International Women's Day. And in this context, we have an article from the newspaper The Hindu, which is talking about how the conflicts and war is impacting the women and the rights of the women. So we know that if you take the last 4 to 5 years, we can see major conflicts and humanitarian crisis in the world. For example, the Sudan crisis, which is still going on but still remaining unspoken, and the Ukraine-Russia crisis, the Israel-Palestine crisis, and currently we are witnessing the ongoing crisis in the West Asia because of the conflict between Iran, Israel, and the USA. And we know that the war will always lead to violation of human rights. It will make refugees. It will lead to erosion of livelihood. It will lead to the erosion of fundamental rights. But women and children are disproportionately affected because of such conflicts. So the International Women's Day, we will start with certain basic facts. So the International Women's Day is observed on March 8 annually, and it was recognized by the UN in 1977. And the theme for this year is Rights, Justice, Action for All Women and Girls. And the day will act as a platform for the promotion of gender equality, for addressing structural discrimination, and also it will act as a platform for advocating policy action for women's empowerment. And talking about the impact of armed conflict or war on women. So like I mentioned, women are disproportionately affected because of the ongoing conflict. So what are the major consequences of war on women? gender-based violence in the form of rape, sexual violence, exploitation during the time of conflict. And we can see that mostly the during the time of the war, the sexual violence is used as a weapon to pressurize the opposite faction. And we have witnessed such issues during the time of the Sudan crisis, as well as during the time of the Israel-Palestine crisis. And the war will lead to forced displacement from the native place. So this will lead to refugee crisis, trafficking risk, and the risk of separation from the family. And the women face high risk than the men. And the socio-economic disruption, the loss of livelihood, food insecurity, restricted mobility. So this will affect both men and women, but women are at high risk because finding an employment, finding a livelihood for women is difficult even today comparing with a man. And loss of basic service, like during the time of war, there will be limited access to healthcare, education, and sanitation. So another generation, will be affected in such a situation. And that's what we witnessed in the Gaza during the time of the Israel-Palestine conflict. And mental health crisis. So we can see that the war will lead to psychological trauma, like in the form of post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, and other anxiety disorders. And we have evidence. We have an evidence from the UN, that is the UN Secretary General report on women, peace, and security, which was published in 2005. So the report finds that 676 million million women in the world is living within 50 kilometer of conflict zones. 676 million women in the world is living with 50 kilometer within the conflict zone. So this is indicating how much riskier their life is. And the casualties, the civilian casualties among women and children are quadrupled in the last in 2 years. And the conflict-related sexual violence got increased by 87% in the recent time. And institutional weakening. So we can see that during the time of war, the region will enter into a state of anarchy. In such a situation, there will be no justice system. In such a situation, there will be no mechanisms or institutions to protect to give social protection or gender protection. So this will have greater impact on women and children than the men. And talking about the important framework for the protection of women during the time of conflict, that is the Women, Peace and Security Framework, which was initiated through the UN Security Council Resolution 1325 in 2000. So this framework aims for the inclusion of women in the peace negotiation resolution to bring long-lasting peace and gender justice. So we can see that the major pillars of this framework are protection, participation, that means ensuring the presence of women, the involvement of women in peace negotiation, conflict resolution, and conflict reconstruction. And the next pillar is the prevention, that is addressing the gender-based violence during the time of war. And the next is relief and recovery, that is gender-sensitive humanitarian assistance. And this framework is also facing an implementation gap. That means if you take the data from 2024, we can see that 9 out of 10 peace process in the world happened without the presence of any women. And we can see that if you take the present status, we can see that the women constitute only 7% of the global negotiators and only 14% of the global mediators. So even though we have such a framework, a UN level framework, still the presence of women, the involvement of women in the peace negotiation and conflict resolution is very less. And strengthening women's rights in conflict zones. So what are the initiatives that we can take? Increasing women's participation in the peace process, one of the pillars of the framework. So evidence from that is estimation from the UN Women shows that peace arguments with women's participation are 35% more likely to last at least for 15 years. And the next is strengthening the legal protection. That means enforcing the international humanitarian law and persecuting the people who are involved in the sexual violence or exploitation during the time of war. And the third is humanitarian support, that is providing gender sensitive food security, healthcare, and psychological and educational support to the people during the time of war. And the institutional strengthening, that includes building gender responsive governance system in the conflict affected region, strengthening the women's collectives and the civil society network in the conflict affected region. And the next is global cooperation, that is integrating gender perspective in peacekeeping missions, humanitarian operations, and post conflict reconstruction. So these are the initiatives that we can take to protect the women's rights and life during the time of conflict or in the conflict areas. And we have a mains practice question. The question is, women suffer disproportionately during armed conflicts, yet largely excluded from peace processes. Discuss the challenges faced by women in conflict zones and examine the role of women, peace and security framework in addressing them. So we have discussed all the the hints for this answer. So it's a 15 marks question and you have to write around 250 words. Write the answer, post it in the comment section. We will review and we will reply for your answer. And for introduction, you can start with any of the key findings from the UN Secretary General report. So we discussed like 676 million women are living within 50 kilometers in the conflict area. So like that, you can give any data to make the answer more authentic and more scientific. And we can see that what are the challenges faced by women in the conflict areas we discussed already, and the role of peace, women, peace and security framework. So what are the pillars? So try to address the pillars of the this framework, and also you can give the implementation gap. So these are the hints you can use in the answer writing. So using these hints, try to answer the question and post it in the comment section. We will review and we will reply for your answer. Now it's time to move to the prelims focus for the day. So coming to the prelims focus for the day, the first topic is Idukki hydroelectric project at 50 years. So the Idukki hydroelectric project is the cornerstone of the Kerala's power security. So this project completes 50 years of since it started working. So we can see that it is located in the Periyar River between the Kuravan and Kuratti hills in the state of Kerala in the district of Idukki. And the major components of this hydroelectric project are Idukki Arch Dam with a height of approximately 170 meter, which makes it one of the tallest dams in Asia. And the next major component is the Cherudoni Gravity Dam and also the Kulamavu Dam. And the area of this project is 60 square kilometer. And the construction was started in the year 1963 with assistance from the Canadian government under the Colombo Plan. And the construction was over by 1976 and it was commissioned by then Prime Minister of India, Ms. Indira Gandhi. And the major power station of this hydroelectric project is the Moolametta Power Station, India's one of the largest underground power stations of India. And talking about the significance, like I mentioned in the beginning, it is a cornerstone of Kerala's power security. And the next topic is global pesticide toxicity. So we can see that China, Brazil, US, and India accounts for 70% of pesticide toxicity in the world. And we can see that the applied toxicity increased, especially because of the 20 widely used agriculture pesticide. And the most affected species are the terrestrial arthropod, soil organisms, and fish. And we can see that the UN already addressed this pesticide toxicity as a major challenge, and we are trying to reduce the pesticide risk by 50% before 2030 according to the UN target. And talking about India's situation, like I mentioned, India is one of the bad performers in managing the pesticide toxicity, because we are using high pesticide on fruits, vegetables, rice, maize, and the soybean. And India, currently we have the Insecticide Act of 1968, but it has a lot of limitations. And now the government is planning to replace this Insecticide Act with the Pesticide Management Bill of 2025 to maintain a balance between environmental safety and the interest of the farmers. And the next topic is Bokaro Steel Plant. So the Bokaro Steel Plant is located in the Bokaro Steel City in the state of Jharkhand in India, and it is operated by the Steel Authority of India Limited. And the annual production is currently 5.25 million tons, and employment. It provides employment for nearly 50,000 plus people. And currently we are planning to expand the production to 7.55 million tons per year. And the significance, it is part of India's national target of 3 million tons steel output by 2030. So that's all the that's the basic facts about the Bokaro steel plant. And coming to the prelims practice question, the question is: consider the following statements regarding the Idukki hydroelectric project. Statement 1: it built across the Periyar River in Kerala. Yes. Statement 2: the project includes Arch Dam, which is one of the highest arch dams in Asia. Yes, the height is approximately 169. And statement 3: the reservoir of the project is formed by Idukki Dam, Cherudoni Dam, and the Kulamavu Dam. So which of the statements given above is or are correct? Comment in the comment section. We will reply. With this, we are coming to the conclusion for today's current affair analysis. If you like the video, hit the like button, give your feedbacks as comments, and share this content with your friends. And before leaving this channel, don't forget to subscribe and also hit the bell icon to receive on-time updates from the academy. Thank you for listening to us. Thank you for listening to me. Have a nice day.